Hey everyone, I'm Jennifer and this is the Quilted Cows Back to the Basics series. Today we will be working on Canestrelli. This is class 3 of 4 in the beginning quilting class. Before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsors, Wilmington Prints, Husqvarna Viking, and Creative Quilts. In class 1, we went over cutting. In class 2, marking and piecing your half square triangles. And today, we will begin to piece all of your blocks together and attach the quilt borders. So let's get started. First, let's trim all of your half square triangle blocks from class 2. They each need to be trimmed to 6.5 inches. So let me show you how to do that. But first, guys, did you mark all of your blocks? That was really important. We talked about that last week. And again, I use my magic pens and I've got everything mapped out here so that when I'm piecing my quilt top together, I know which blocks I need to grab. We've got my A, my AD, my AB, D, B, B, C, and C, D. I hope you guys got that. All right, so everything is perfectly organized, and that is so important when you're quilting. All right, so now we're going to show you how to trim up your blocks. We've got to trim your half square triangle blocks to 6.5 inches. Now, using a 45-degree angle line helps make it wicked easy, and I'm going to use this 12.5-inch creative grid. So let me show you how to do it. I have one block here that I left unsquared so that I can show you. All right, so what we're going to do, again, we've got the 45-degree angle line right here on my ruler. That is so important. And we're going to make this, turn the block. We're going to line up your 45-degree angle line right there. So using that 45-degree angle line, place it on the seam of your half square triangle and carefully trim. Do this for all of your blocks. So as you can see, let me show you guys how to do this. So I've got my line right here. You can see that line. And I'm going to put that right on that seam. And then I'm just going to make sure that I have enough room to trim all the way around. Now, you could also use a 6.5-inch creative grid ruler. Those are great, but then you don't have as much leverage. So sometimes I like to use a larger ruler. And we're going to flip it and we're going to trim again. And now my 6.5 is lined up over here. My 6.5 is lined up along the bottom. And I've got my diagonal 45 right there. All right, and there you go. Now you have everything ready to piece your quilt top. So we've got all of our blocks. All right, following the layout diagram, we're going to begin piecing one block at a time. Piecing the first row. You need to use a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and we'll press the seams open as we go. So let me show you. This is what the layout's going to look like. So first you have your D block, which is your plain 6.5-inch square. Then you have your C and D, and your A and D. Very important, guys, to follow the diagram. Now, what you do is go ahead and place all of your blocks for your first row. And then we're going to piece one at a time. Place the fabrics right side together. Line up all the way around it. And go ahead and let's pin this just to secure it. And then using a 1/4-inch seam, we are going to stitch right along this edge right here. All right, so a 1/4-inch seam, stitch right along that edge. Let's go ahead and go to the machine. All right, so now that you've sewn your first block, you're going to go ahead and you're going to sew all of them. So go ahead and you're going to press the seams open. All right, so after you've pieced your first block, now it's time to add your second. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go ahead and place this one on top of that, right sides together, line all of the edges up, pin again, and then sew a 1/4 inch. And then you're going to press your seams open and continue right on, right across, adding all of your blocks on your first row. After piecing each row, you need to join the rows. Carefully line up the seams and pin your rows together and stitch again using a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Once you have pieced all of the rows together, it's time to add the borders. All right, so what I've done is I've just made just a little fake quilt top. And what you need to do to add your borders, now everybody is going to tell you all different ways to add borders to your quilt. One of them being like all mathematical, all right, measuring and dividing and doing, I don't even know, guys, it's just so confusing. So I do it this way, and this is the way that has always worked best for me, okay? So I have my quilt top, my fake quilt top right here in front of me. And I always like to add the side borders first, all right? And the way to remember that is like you put your hat and your shoes on after you get dressed. So the top and the bottom after. All right, so for my side borders, I am gonna go ahead and I am gonna make sure that my top is all pressed really, really good. All right, then I've got my border and I'm gonna lay it on the quilt top just like that, right sides together. And I am going to make sure everything is nice and smooth. I'm not going to stretch it. All right, I'm just going to place it really nice. And then using my pins, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pin the entire length just like that. And then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. And then you're going to press your border. And then you move right onto the other side and add the next one. A lot of times people ask, well, why can't I just sew all of my borders together and then put them on the quilt all at once? You can't do that because it won't lay out right. So just do it one border at a time. So you're going to do your side border, add your other side border, then do the top and bottom, and then move on to your next set of borders. Because on this quilt, you have 3 sets. Press as you go, making sure that everything stays nice and flat. All right, guys, so your homework for this weekend, get your quilt top pieced, get the borders on, and next week we are going to finish this up. We're going to learn how to quilt and add your binding, and then that's it. You will have made your first quilt. Super exciting. Have a wicked fun time, and we'll see us next week.
All right, you wicked cool quilters, you made it to the end. Good job. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook. Also, like and subscribe to our channel. We would like to thank our sponsors, Husqvarna Viking, Wilmington Prince, and Creative Grids.